Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through my phone, when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of a pocket dial. I glanced down, seeing my dad's name on the screen. Weird. He never calls unless it's important. I put the phone to my ear, expecting to hear his voice. Maybe a quick question. But instead, I caught the tail end of a conversation. My mom's voice first, low and even. She's just a burden. I don't know why we keep pretending she matters. A laugh from my brother. Yeah, seriously, she's the one who should be ashamed. All these years, and what does she have to show for it? I froze, the words punching through the air like a sucker punch to the gut. She was a mistake, my dad's voice followed, thick with a calm cruelty that sent chills down my spine. Should have never been born. I felt my stomach turn, the phone almost slipping out of my hand. My heart hammered. Too fast, too loud, and I couldn't breathe. My own family, my parents and brother, sitting there, talking about me like I wasn't even there. Like I was just some problem to be discarded. I always suspected they didn't care, but hearing it like that, in their own words, it was like the ground fell out from under me. I didn't even think to hang up. I couldn't. It felt like I was suspended in time, the silence between their words worse than anything. The conversation went on, but I couldn't focus on what they were saying. The cold realization hit me like a brick wall. Everything I'd done for them, every sacrifice, every lie I told to protect them, it meant nothing. Finally, my body moved, slamming the end call button. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I sat there, frozen, with nothing but the ringing in my ears, nothing but the crushing weight of their words. They had never cared. I wasn't their daughter. Not really. Just a pawn in their game. And suddenly, I didn't know who I was anymore. I don't know how much time passed after I hung up. An hour? Maybe 2? The apartment felt suffocating, the silence pressing down on me harder than any noise. I stumbled into the kitchen, needing something, anything to distract me. My hands moved mechanically as I reached for a glass and turned on the tap. The cold water flowed, but I barely registered it. My mind kept replaying the words, over and over like a broken record. She was a mistake. Should have never been born. I spilled the water everywhere, on my shirt, my hands, the counter. I didn't even flinch, just stood there, staring at the mess, feeling nothing but numb. I should have cleaned it up, but I couldn't. The effort felt like too much. Instead, I stood there and let my thoughts crash over me. The years I spent defending them, fixing their image. I remembered how I'd taken the reins of PR and compliance when the company started tanking, Torres Logistics, the business they'd built and dragged down. I remembered the late nights, crunching numbers that didn't add up, cooking the books so they could stay afloat, all the lies I told to keep the regulators at bay, all the deals I smoothed over with a fake smile, telling people everything was fine when I knew damn well it wasn't. And then there was my brother. God, I spent years covering for him. I shielded him when his messes got out of hand, making sure the police never got their hands on him. I paid off people to keep his criminal charges quiet, paid off insurers to hide their mistakes. I played the part of the dutiful daughter, the protector, the one who made sure the family image stayed spotless. Now I realized it was all for nothing. I wasn't a daughter, not to them. I was a tool to fix problems, to clean up the messes they didn't want to deal with. They didn't love me. They didn't even see me. I was just the one who kept everything from falling apart for a little longer. The weight of it hit me all at once. I didn't have the strength to keep standing. My knees buckled, and I collapsed to the kitchen floor, barely able to breathe through the sting in my chest. The tile was cold against my skin, but it didn't matter. I felt hollow inside, like I'd been hollowed out from the inside out. Tears welled up, and I couldn't stop them. They came fast, too fast, like a dam breaking. I pressed my palms to the floor, trying to steady myself, but the sobs wouldn't stop. The kind of crying that makes your chest ache, makes your whole body shake, like you're breaking apart from the inside. Maybe I was finally done. Maybe that was it. Maybe after all these years of bending and lying and protecting, I was finally done pretending, done being the fixer, done being their shield. Because if they couldn't even see me as their daughter, if they thought I was nothing but a mistake, then I didn't owe them a damn thing. And yet the sobs wouldn't stop. I couldn't breathe through it. Maybe this was what rock bottom felt like, a place where all the lies, all the sacrifices came crashing down, and all that was left was the truth. I'm done. The next morning, I pulled on my uniform, the familiar weight of it almost suffocating. I wasn't sure why I even bothered. I could have called in sick, but I didn't. I couldn't let myself stop moving. It felt like if I stopped for a second, I might fall apart. The sheriff's department felt far from home, and yet it was all I had left. I walked through the doors like I always did, head high, no cracks in the facade. My colleagues greeted me with their usual half-hearted nods, the kind of acknowledgement you give someone when you don't expect them to be a part of your day. I got to work, buried my face in paperwork, listened to calls with the same detached indifference I had for years. I did my job, but every second felt like I was outside my own skin, going through the motions while everything inside me was unraveling. It was like I wasn't even there, just a shell of myself. By noon, the text from my mom came through. I didn't even open it. Didn't need to. I already knew what it would say. Are you okay? I wasn't okay. I hadn't been okay for a long time, but I hadn't wanted to admit it. Now I didn't care. I just stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the message, debating whether to reply. I couldn't. It felt too much like pretending. I couldn't pretend anymore. After my shift ended, I drove home in silence, the streets passing by in a blur. My mind kept drifting back to the emptiness of that kitchen floor, the weight of everything I'd done, and how it didn't matter. None of it mattered. I'd covered for them for years, but they weren't family. They weren't the people I thought they were. The thought of leaving haunted me. It crept in when I sat in my car late at night, parked by empty fields, staring into nothing. I could just walk away, pack a bag, leave, start over somewhere else. But then guilt would claw its way in, sharp and persistent, and I'd stay. I had no idea why. Maybe I thought I still owed them something. Maybe I still wanted their approval. But deep down, I knew the truth. They weren't my family anymore. They hadn't been for a long time. They were just people who had used me, used my loyalty, my skills, my silence, until there was nothing left. And what the hell was I doing in this uniform? Pretending to be the protector, pretending to stand for something when all I'd ever done was cover for crooks, for people who didn't care about anything but themselves. The uniform used to make me feel like I was part of something bigger, like I was making a difference. Now it felt like a costume I wore to convince myself I was still the person I'd been before. But I wasn't her anymore. I didn't know who I was. All I knew was I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep covering for them. Not anymore. Not after hearing what they really thought of me. Not after everything I'd done to save them, to protect them, to shield them from the consequences of their own actions. I was done. I just didn't know what to do with that yet. 2 nights later, I finished my shift at the sheriff's department, my mind still reeling from everything I hadn't been able to face. I hadn't told anyone, not a soul. I kept up appearances like I always did, pretending the cracks weren't there, but it was harder now. Harder to ignore how everything inside me felt like it was falling apart. I was halfway home when my phone buzzed. It was my brother. I answered, not wanting to deal with it, but knowing I would have to. "Where the hell were you?" he snapped. I blinked, not understanding. "What?" "The audit meeting. You didn't show up. You know how important that was, right? How much you fucked this up?" His voice was tight, accusing. "I didn't know about any meeting," I replied, trying to stay calm. "Of course you didn't." His laugh was cold. "Just like everything else. Maybe you're too busy playing sheriff, huh? You don't care about this family anymore, do you?" A chill ran down my spine. I could almost feel the venom in his words. I thought I was used to it, but it cut deeper this time. "I said I didn't know," I repeated, my voice low. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Why bother?" His tone was dismissive. "No wonder Dad hates you. You're useless. You always have been." The words hit like a punch to the chest. I wasn't prepared for them. Not now. Not after everything I'd heard, after everything I'd realized. I hung up, a numbness creeping over me. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I sat there in my car, parked in my driveway. The engine was still running, the lights dim, but the world outside felt distant, like I was separate from it. I didn't know how long I sat there, my eyes staring straight ahead. My breath came in shallow bursts, tears welling up in my eyes, but I couldn't make myself cry. I'd done that before, when I heard their words on that call, when I saw the truth for what it was, but now I just felt hollow. Like everything inside me had been drained out, leaving nothing but the weight of their expectations, their accusations. They still wanted me to fix their problems, still wanted me to be the one who cleaned up their messes. After everything, after the years of sacrifice, of bending over backward to protect them, they still saw me as nothing more than a tool, A tool they could blame, a tool they could use. I don't know how long I sat there, but when I finally wiped my eyes and took a breath, something inside me shifted. Maybe it wasn't betrayal, maybe it was survival. I wasn't going to save them anymore. I wasn't going to keep pretending. For the first time, I saw clearly. They would never see me as anything but a burden. They would never change, and I'd been fooling myself all along, thinking I could fix things. I could hear their voices in my head, their mockery, their hatred, the way they always made me feel like I wasn't enough. I had given them everything, and it had never been enough. I turned off the car, stepped out, and walked into the house. I didn't say a word, not to my mother, not to my brother, not to anyone. I just walked through the door like I was someone else, like I wasn't even the person who had been holding their world together for all these years. That thought settled over me, heavy and true. I didn't have to fix their messes anymore. I didn't have to carry them on my back. The weight had shifted. For the first time, I wasn't just their daughter, their fixer, I was me, and I had a choice. I spent the next few hours pacing around the house, my mind racing. The walls felt like they were closing in, pressing me from every side. The weight of the decision I was about to make was suffocating, but there was no turning back now, not after everything I'd seen, heard, and done. I went into my bedroom and pulled open the drawer where I kept a burner phone, one I'd had for months, just in case. My fingers trembled slightly as I turned it on, the faint buzz of it booting up a reminder of the life I'd been trying to escape for years, the life I thought I could fix. When the phone finally lit up, I scrolled through the contacts until I found the one I was looking for. Agent Riley. We'd worked together on a joint task force a few years back, but we hadn't kept in touch since. I wasn't sure why I'd trusted him then, but right now, I couldn't think of anyone else who might actually help me. I hit dial, the phone ringing in my ear, and I felt my stomach tighten with every passing second. Agent Riley, he answered after the third ring, his voice calm and familiar, a contrast to the storm in my head. It's Mia Torres, I said, the words coming out sharper than I meant them to. Mia, he replied, his tone immediately shifting, as if he already knew something was wrong. You need help? Yeah, I said, swallowing hard. I need to meet, in person, somewhere private. There was a pause on the other end, just long enough for me to feel the weight of his silence. I'll be there in an hour, park on Maple and 5th. I ended the call without another word and grabbed my jacket. My hands were steady now, like I had a mission. Like I wasn't still that girl who'd spent years lying for her family. An hour later, I parked in the lot of a public park, the kind of place where no one would think to look for a federal agent and someone like me, someone who was supposed to have it all together. I saw Riley's car pull in just as I finished smoking the last of a cigarette I hadn't needed. He stepped out, dressed in plain clothes, his expression neutral, but his eyes didn't miss a beat. He saw me and didn't ask questions. I like that about him. I assume this isn't a social visit, Riley said, his voice flat but not unfriendly. He'd always been professional, even when we'd worked together before. Yeah, I said, taking a breath. It's about my family. I've got everything on them. Tax fraud, shell companies, drug ties, forged compliance reports, everything. I've been covering for them for years. Riley didn't flinch. He just nodded, as though he'd been expecting this. We've been watching them for 2 years. It's good to know we finally got to you. I paused. What does that mean? Means we've been hoping you'd flip, he said, his tone still even. We've got enough to make this work, Mia, but we need you to come through. Your family's too deep in this to walk away now, and we've already got our eyes on them. I stood there, my breath shaky. My whole body felt like it was on the edge of something big, something I couldn't turn away from anymore. Is it enough? I asked, the words heavy in my mouth. Will this take them down? Riley looked me dead in the eyes, and for a second, I could see the weight of everything he was carrying too. It's enough to end them, but you need to make the choice, Mia. We need the final pieces. You have to give us everything. I nodded, my heart thumping in my chest, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. I'll get it to you, I said, my voice steady. But I need your word. No cameras on the workers, delay the raids to avoid panic, and make sure the legit employees get their pay. No one else gets hurt. Riley studied me for a moment, then gave a single nod. You've got my word. I turned to leave, my mind already racing with the next steps. But before I got in the car, I felt the cool air on my face and realized something. I wasn't just protecting them anymore. This time, I was going to bring them down. Over the next 48 hours, I did what I had to do. Every moment of it felt like I was dragging myself deeper into a hole I couldn't climb out of. But I couldn't stop. Not now. I started with the emails, hundreds of them stacked in their respective folders, the subject lines innocuous enough: quarterly revenue review, vendor audit, employee bonuses. But the attachments, the ones buried deep in the threads, told a different story. Invoices padded with false numbers, bank transfers routed through offshore accounts, transactions marked as miscellaneous to cover drug shipments. Every email I opened, every line I read made my skin crawl. But I kept going. I had to. Then I moved on to the old burner phone texts. My brother had kept up with the lies even after I stopped doing his dirty work. I found the messages, risky deals, talk of payoffs, coordination with suppliers to hide the illegal stuff. The conversations were casual, but the meaning wasn't lost on me. I'd been right there, standing beside them, pretending I didn't see it all. I wasn't just digging through their lies anymore. I was collecting the pieces of the life I'd built around them. The false narrative I'd created that I could fix them, that I could protect them from their own messes. The truth felt worse than any of the lies. The hardest part came when I walked into my father's office. I knew the files I needed would be in that locked cabinet of his. I had the key, of course. He trusted me, or at least he'd always thought he did. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the cabinet like it was some kind of final test, a last chance to back out before I exposed everything. But I couldn't back out now. I needed this. I opened the cabinet, and there they were. The reports, the ledgers, the fraudulent paperwork that kept the business running smoothly on the surface. My father had always prided himself on being a savvy businessman. He never thought I'd take a closer look. I snapped photos of the key documents with my phone, making sure to get everything, even the forged compliance reports I'd signed off on in the past. The last thing I grabbed was the recording from the butt dial, the one I couldn't erase, the one that would make them understand I wasn't just some disgruntled employee. I was their daughter, the one they thought they could throw away. The weight of what I was doing hit me as I gathered everything up. Each piece of evidence sickened me more than the last. It was hard to look at, harder to think about, but there was no turning back. I packed everything into a small USB drive, labeling it carefully. Torres Logistics. Evidence. The drive sat in front of me like a ticking time bomb. I couldn't stop looking at it. It felt like the only thing left of me, the only thing that was real anymore. I barely slept the next 2 nights, the hours bleeding into each other as I double-checked every file, making sure I had everything Riley needed. My mother and brother continued to text like nothing had changed. "How's your day? We need you at the office tomorrow for a meeting." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I wasn't their protector anymore. The night before I was set to meet Riley again, I sat in my car, staring at the drive in my palm. The final step. I didn't know how I felt about it, if I should feel relief or guilt or something else. I only knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep pretending. The next morning, I drove to the park again. The weather was colder, the air sharper than it had been before, as if it was trying to remind me of what I was about to do. Riley's car was already there when I pulled in. He stepped out as soon as I parked, giving me a quick nod. I handed him the drive without saying a word, my hands a little unsteady. "You got everything?" Riley asked, his eyes scanning me, looking for any sign of hesitation. He knew. He had to. "Everything," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Invoices, texts, bank records, burner phone messages, and..." I hesitated, but just for a second. "And a recording." He didn't ask for details. He didn't need to. He'd been waiting for this. "I also have conditions," I added quickly, my voice steadier now. "No cameras on the workers. Don't want them to panic. Delay the raids, give them time to get out, and make sure the legit employees get their pay. They're not part of this." Riley gave a single nod, taking the drive from me. "You've got my word, Mia." I stood there for a moment longer, watching him drive away, feeling the finality of it all settle over me. There was no going back. But there was something else too, something lighter, a sense of release, like the weight of years of lies and manipulation was finally starting to lift. Maybe I hadn't been wrong to protect them at first, but I sure as hell wasn't wrong to stop now. The next day, everything started to unravel. I kept my phone close, watching for any sign of movement. First, the warehouse. 12 agents stormed in, early morning, and started pulling files, shutting down the operation. Then came the permit office, where the paperwork trail led to some of the biggest violations. The shell location near the rail yard was hit last, the feds making sure they hit all their marks. I watched it all from a distance, waiting for the inevitable. I kept waiting for something to feel real, for something to hit me in a way I couldn't ignore. But nothing did. By the time night fell, I was just numb. I put on my usual face, the one I wore when I walked into my parents' house for dinner, smiling, pretending nothing was wrong. The routine was all too familiar. My mom was in the kitchen, fussing over sweet potatoes like she always did. Dad was at the table, whiskey glass in hand, talking about the legacy of Torres Logistics like it was some untouchable empire. My brother was glued to his phone, like always, but he looked up when I walked in. "Hey, Mia," he said, barely making eye contact. "Hey," I replied, sitting down at the table like it was just another night. "Everything all right?" Dad asked, as if nothing had changed. I nodded, forcing a smile. He didn't seem to notice. We ate, we joked. The bourbon flowed, and I laughed along with the rest of them, making small talk, pretending nothing was about to change. They had no idea what was coming. I could almost feel the weight of the deception pressing down on me, but I kept it together, kept my mouth shut. By 10 p.m., the news started running their breaking story. I didn't see it coming, but somehow I knew exactly what was happening the second the sound cut through the quiet of the room. It wasn't just another local crime report. Breaking news tonight, an extensive fraud investigation into the Torres Logistics empire. Federal agents raided multiple locations, including the warehouse, the permit office, and an undisclosed site near the rail yard. The words hit like a punch in the gut. They said our name, my family's name, and the logo flashed across the screen. My heart pounded as I stared at the footage of the feds carting out documents, agents stacking up boxes of evidence. And there, in the corner of the screen, I saw the one thing I couldn't ignore, a camera shot of our office. Dad's face went ashen. My brother jumped out of his seat, cursing under his breath. I could feel the panic radiating off them. But my mom, she didn't move. She just stared at the screen, her face frozen in some kind of disbelief I couldn't even understand. No one spoke. The room was so still you could hear a pin drop. My brother was pacing now, throwing his phone down on the couch, swearing at the TV. Dad was muttering under his breath about lawyers, his voice tight, like he was still trying to control the situation. But it was too late for control. I could feel my breath getting shorter, my heart racing, and I knew if I didn't leave right then, I might lose it. I stood up, not looking at anyone, and walked toward the door. "Mia!" My dad's voice cracked, but I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I stepped outside, needing to get away, needing to breathe. I reached for my phone, a single text from Agent Riley. "Stay away tonight." I stared at it, feeling the weight of his words sink in. I wasn't just done with them. This whole family, I had to walk away from it all. I had no place here anymore. I slid my phone back into my pocket and took a deep breath. In the end, I wasn't a daughter. Not in their eyes. Not anymore. I wasn't anything to them. But I wasn't their problem anymore either. The next morning, I suited up in full uniform. The sheriff's badge felt heavier than it ever had, but I couldn't bring myself to take it off. I couldn't bring myself to leave behind the one thing that still tied me to the person I'd pretended to be. But today, I wasn't here to protect anyone. Today, I was part of the team bringing them down. The convoy of agents rolled up to Torres Logistics HQ, and I parked my car alongside them. The doors opened, and agents flooded the building. I stepped out with them, every step deliberate, trying to keep my heart from betraying me. I'd made my choice, but the weight of it still pressed down on me. As we approached the main entrance, my father appeared, his face drained of color when he saw me. He was standing in front of his office, the door wide open. His eyes locked with mine, and there was no question in his voice when he spoke. "Mia," he started, his voice shaking, a forced calm that didn't match the panic behind his eyes. "What is this? What the hell are you doing?" I stopped right in front of him. My hands were steady, my stance firm. I didn't flinch. "You did this," I said, my voice cold, carrying more weight than I thought it could. I just stopped hiding it. For a moment, he didn't say anything. His face twisted, like he was trying to piece together some last-ditch excuse. But there was no excuse. Not anymore. I didn't wait for him to respond. I turned away from him and followed the agents into the building. My mother was already in the hallway, standing near the door to the conference room, staring at the scene like she couldn't comprehend what was happening. She looked at me with wide eyes, her mouth opening as if to speak, but no words came out. Then, without warning, her legs buckled beneath her, and she collapsed against the wall, sobbing. It was as if the last thread of her composure had snapped. My brother appeared next to her, his face pale, eyes flicking from me to the agents and back. His phone was in his hand, trembling. He stared at the screen for a moment before it dropped to his side. He said nothing, not one word. I didn't look at them any longer. I didn't owe them anything anymore. I didn't owe them an explanation. The agents moved through the building with practiced precision, pulling files from drawers, prying open safes, disconnecting hard drives, and bagging documents. There was no hesitation. It was all business. And it should have been. I watched, but I wasn't really there. Not for them, not anymore. The press arrived right on cue. Cameras flashed, reporters gathered at the gates, and the news team set up, ready for their moment. I could feel their eyes on me, on us, but I didn't care. This was it. The truth was being exposed, and I wasn't going to play their game anymore. Through the chaos, I remained silent. The reporters shouted questions, their microphones reaching out like they wanted something from me, something to pin on me. But I didn't respond. I couldn't, and I wouldn't. One of the agents, Riley, caught my eye from across the room. He nodded at me, just a small, subtle gesture, but it meant everything. He knew I was done. This wasn't just a job for me anymore. The agents continued their work, collecting evidence, pulling everything out into the open. My father tried to speak again, but his voice didn't carry through the crowd. He looked lost, like he didn't even know who he was anymore. My brother was still frozen, still clutching his phone, not daring to move. My mother's sobs echoed down the hall, the sound piercing the air like a weight I couldn't escape. Riley gave me one last nod as he approached. He didn't speak either, but there was a certain finality in the way he looked at me, a certain understanding. I turned and walked out the door, leaving the wreckage behind. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I spent the night in my apartment, sitting on the couch, my eyes glued to the TV that was broadcasting my family's downfall. I didn't watch the reports closely. I didn't need to. I already knew the details. The raids, the evidence, the footage of Torres Logistics getting torn apart. But the silence around me, this stillness that had taken over, felt different than it ever had. It wasn't loneliness. I wasn't alone in that sense. But there was a quietness now, like the world outside had finally stopped spinning. Or maybe I had stopped spinning with it. I scrolled through the headlines for a while, letting the words blur together. I didn't read them deeply. I wasn't looking for more reasons to feel sick to my stomach. I didn't need to see their faces on the screen, hear their names, the familiar lies they always told to the public. It didn't matter now. It was all falling apart, and I had no part in it anymore. I had no place in their world. But the memories still hit, uninvited and relentless. The years I'd spent keeping the family business afloat, managing the lies, shielding them from the consequences of their mistakes. I had been the fixer, the one who kept it all together while they fucked it all up. And now it was all pointless. All the compromises, the fake smiles, the lies I told, none of it had saved them. None of it had mattered. I clicked on my messages, staring at the empty text box as I began to type. I stopped lying. I paused before I could hit send. My finger hovered over the screen, but I couldn't bring myself to send it. To him. To my brother, who I had spent my whole life trying to protect, trying to fix. It was a message I didn't need to send. He already knew. He had to. I deleted the draft, staring at the screen for a long moment before putting the phone down. The weight of it all seemed to press into me from every angle, but for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to carry it. The phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking the silence. I picked it up, expecting another news alert, but it wasn't. It was Riley. "Everything going okay?" His message read. "Just a heads up, the media will dig, but your name won't be mentioned. I've made sure of that." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I typed back a simple, "Thanks," and set the phone down again. There was something about his reassurance that felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. At least that part of them trying to drag me into the mud with them, was taken care of. I didn't have to be the scapegoat. Not anymore. I stepped out onto the balcony, letting the cool air hit my face. I leaned against the railing and stared out over the city, the quiet stretching out before me. I should have been terrified. This was the moment I had been waiting for, when it all came crashing down. when the truth was exposed and the consequences finally came. But I wasn't terrified. I was lighter. The weight of everything I had carried for so long, the lies, the guilt, the expectations, I could finally put it down. It wasn't mine to carry anymore. I didn't have to protect them. I didn't have to be the fixer. I didn't have to be anything for them. For once, the stillness around me wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like freedom. The van was silent as we drove toward the main HQ. Riley sat across from me, his face unreadable, but I could feel the tension in the air. The other agents sat quietly, their focus unwavering, waiting for the call. The hum of the tires on the road was the only sound, a soft reminder that this was it. It was happening. The town courthouse clock hit 9:15 a.m. as we pulled up to the building. I could see the reporters gathering outside, cameras set up, the buzz of anticipation already building. I stepped out of the van, my boots hitting the pavement with a purpose, the weight of the uniform pressing down on me. Today, I wasn't just a sheriff's deputy. Today, I was part of something bigger. We made our way inside, the agents moving like a well-oiled machine. No hesitation, no room for mistakes. I walked with them, my face blank, my posture stiff. I wasn't there to feel anything. I wasn't there to be part of that family anymore. And then I saw him, my father. He was standing near the entrance to his office, his eyes locking with mine the moment I stepped into the room. The recognition hit him hard. He knew. He could see it in my eyes. The finality. He didn't speak at first. He just stared at me, searching for some hint of the daughter he thought he knew. The fixer, the one who always cleaned up the messes. But I wasn't that person anymore. Not today, not ever again. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. Mia. His eyes searched mine, his panic growing. But I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I just stood there, letting him see it. Letting him see that I wasn't going to protect him anymore. You did this, I said, my voice cold and final. I just stopped hiding it. His face twisted, the realization sinking in. He didn't know how to respond. He couldn't. My mother's sobs echoed from somewhere down the hall, her breakdown too late to matter. My brother stood frozen by the door, his phone in hand, his face pale as he processed what was happening. But there was no place for them in this moment. This wasn't about them anymore. The agents moved swiftly, pulling documents from drawers, disconnecting hard drives, and seizing anything they could find. My father tried to intervene, but the agents were already in control. They didn't hesitate. They were taking it all. Outside, the reporters were starting to gather, their cameras flashing as the first official statement came through the airwaves. The Torres logistics empire, once untouchable, was being dismantled piece by piece. I stood there, watching it all, the collapse unfolding in front of me. There was no triumph in it, no relief, just the reality of what had to be done. Riley nodded at me from across the room, his face giving nothing away. I turned and walked toward the door, not looking back. Not even once. I didn't need to. That night, back in my apartment, I sat alone at my desk. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't know what to say. Then, finally, the words came. You are not their shame. You're not their mistake. You're just the only one who saw the truth. And that's not weakness. That's strength. I hit send. It wasn't to anyone specific. Maybe it was to myself. But for once, I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight of all their lies anymore.